dish, we're going to make the pecan nut bars, and for the nut bars we're going to need 8 ounces of cream cheese, 1½ sticks of butter, 1 cup of packed brown sugar, 1/2 cup of light corn syrup, 2 1/4 cups of regular flour, 1 cup of regular sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 stick of butter melted, and 2 eggs, vanilla, and 3 cups of pecans, which we're going to have to chop. To begin the pecan bars, we are going to take the cream cheese and the butter and put them in our mixer bowl with the sugar and vanilla. If you don't have a stand mixer, that's fine. Like I said earlier, you can do this by hand or you can do it with a handheld mixer. So let's get our cream cheese in. It's at room temperature. The cream cheese and the butter should be at room temperature. Makes it easier to mix. When baking these, use the regular cream cheese. Don't get the lower fat one. I did try baking it one time with it, and the dough just didn't quite come out right. It's hard to describe, but the full fat cream cheese tends to make a better crust. So I'm going to get as much of this in here that I can, and let's put it in. I'm going to put this aside. And the cup of sugar. It does look a little brown. This is not brown sugar, just letting you know. I use an organic cane sugar instead of white sugar. So, but this is regular sugar. We will be using the brown sugar later on in the recipe. And oops, didn't all come out. Sometimes it's a little stubborn. And the 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Had to look on my recipe there, I had to cheat. 1, 2. And we're going to attach this. And we're going to incorporate it, not on high, on a medium to medium low, till it's incorporated. Move the mixer a little closer to me. I like to stop it occasionally and just scrape down the sides, just to be sure. You don't have to, but if you see your mixer has a little bit on the sides, you can do that. That way it's all incorporated. I'm going to put this on low, and we're going to add our flour and our baking soda. And add it slowly so it incorporates. Plus the fact you don't want to have a flour cloud in your kitchen. Just going to add the baking soda, just a small amount, just incorporate it there. Baking does tend to get a little messy. You do get your hands a little dirty sometimes. Now this is my 2 1/4 cup of flour. See? Let's add it in. Turn up the speed just a little bit for about 30 seconds or so. Just get it incorporated. Since the dough is wet now and not just floury, it won't fly all over the place. There's a little bit of flour up there. flour in the machine. I'll just brush it in. All right, the dough will be a bit sticky. Whoops, I'm going to get it off the paddle. Let's try this, it'll be a little easier. Just get as much dough off the paddle as you can. If you feel the need to taste your dough, feel free. There's no raw egg in this part at least. Okay, get enough of that off of there. And then we're going to take this dough and we are going to spread it into a 15 by 10 by about 1 inch jelly roll pan. So let me get that. My director has helped me. I have a clay jelly roll pan. You can certainly use a metal one. I would suggest non-stick. You do not have to grease your pan. So, and this is where you get a little messy. As you can see, my pan is highly seasoned. It's not dirty. And it's spread in there. Just going to be a little patient in getting it out of the bowl. And scrape it and get all the good stuff out. Scrape as much as possible. Sorry about that, it gets a little noisy. What you want to do is start spreading this. It does take a little bit of time to do, but it is well worth it because these are so delicious. So while I'm doing this, we're going to take a break. We'll see you when we get back. Welcome back to the dish. I am finishing up spreading our cream cheese dough base into my jelly roll pan. As you can see, it does get a little tricky at times because it's a little thicker than like an icing would be, so it takes a little bit to get it spread out. Try to get it even as possible, and I ended up using a little spoon to help get it into some of the corners, and as you can see, some of it went up along the side. That's okay. I'm going to scrape off my spoon here to get all the dough I can because it's good stuff. And it's kind of back and forth. Now I have the oven preheated to 350 degrees. And we're going to put this in because this will bake for 20 minutes. And we're going to take it out at that point. It will not be completely baked at that point. And what we will do is we will add the nut mixture, which I'm going to make next, to it after it's baked for 20 minutes. While the dough is baking in the oven, I'm going to do the nut filling mixture. I have a pound of pecans in my bag. They do need to be chopped. I could put them out on a cutting board and take my knife and chop them, but I kind of like to make things a little easier. I put them in a closable bag, and I'm going to flatten them out a little bit, and I'm going to kind of pound my rolling pin on them. Get some aggression out. There. Now they are not all going to be 100% broken, but it does help. We'll just put that aside. So, have that. We're going to need 3 cups of the broken up nuts. In a bowl, I'm going to mix 2 eggs. And I forgot to get my mixing spoon out. I have a cup of firmly packed brown sugar. Now this I would suggest you do with a regular mixing spoon. Because of the addition of the nuts at the end, using a handheld mixer would not be wise. It would just jam up the beater. If you want to use the large stand mixer like I was using earlier, that's fine. You can do that with the paddle attachment on that. It is able to mix the nuts in. That's up to you. Next I'm going to add 2/3 of a cup of carob syrup. Sorry about that. It's 2/3 of a cup, not a half. And just give it some help in getting out. If for some reason you don't have any light corn syrup, I already have used the darker corn syrup. It just makes the filling a little darker in color once it's cooked. It really doesn't have much of a taste difference. And then we have our 1/2 stick of melted butter. I would make sure that when you add the melted butter that it has cooled. You don't want to add hot butter to eggs in this because you'll end up having scrambled eggs instead of. And we need a teaspoon of vanilla. There we go. And just mix it up. It almost gives you that pecan pie type look. Let's get that incorporated. Let's give it. There's really no set amount of time to mix this. Just look at it and make sure everything's incorporated, as you can see. And the next thing for this will be our 3 cups of chopped pecans. I'm using pecans today. You can use all pecans in it. If you want to use a mixture of half pecans, half walnuts, or all walnuts, as long as it's 3 cups of nuts, that's fine, whichever you choose. I have used half and half, and I've already made the recipe with all walnuts, and all of them taste great. So let's add our 3 cups of pecans. We've got 1, 2, and 3. Now remember, I started out with a pound, so there is a little bit left over. And that's 3 cups of nuts, the pecans. And just stir them in there. It looks really, really good. As you can see, looks almost pecan pie-ish. Okay, look at that. That looks so good. It smells very sugary. Now this is a treat that I like to make year-round. My husband loves these, and they also freeze very well. It does make, as you saw, quite a large amount, a 15 by 10 pan. So once they've cooled completely, you can cut them into individual bars, and as long as they're wrapped properly for the freezer, you can freeze them. I think we froze them like 3 to 4 months, but they usually don't last that long around here. Now that this is all mixed, we're going to set this aside until our dough is finished. Our dough's been in the oven for 20 minutes. We're going to take it out, and we're going to put the nut mixture on it. So as you can see, it's not quite done yet. Don't worry about the height. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the nut mixture on. It's going to kind of spoon it out. Usually my spatula just to get all the gooey stuff out, because trust me, you want all the gooey stuff on it. Oh man. Just trying to get as much of that out of the bowl as I can. And then just spread it out. Try not to push down on the dough. I know it might be a little tempting to do that. while trying to spread the nuts out, but I find the wooden spoon works best. You're not going to be able to cover every corner of the nut bar with the nuts. I like to leave just a little bit of a border. As you can see, we've got juice and nuts all over the place here. And we're going to put it back in the 350-degree oven for 20 to 25 minutes. When it comes out, it will be brown around the edges, and in the center it will be a little bit jiggly. Not a lot jiggly, but just a little. That's fine because it'll set up as it cools down. So now I'm going to stick it back in our 350-degree oven. Okay, the timer has gone off. I'm going to remove the nut bars from the oven. Here. Ooh, they look good. As you can see, it did get a little darker brown around some of the edges. That's fine. You have to remember that there is corn syrup in there and brown sugar, so you will get the caramelization from the sugars. This does need to cool to touch. Excuse me. I would not recommend cutting this just yet because it does still have to set up a little bit in the center. It may still be a little liquidy. That's fine. As it cools, it will set up. The outer edges tend to get done a little quicker. So we're going to let this cool to the touch before we cut it. Today on the dish, I made desserts. We made Pennsylvania Dutch funny cake, and we made pecan nut bars. As you can see with the funny cake, the chocolate did sink to the bottom, but you can see a little bit of the veining, a little bit of marbling. It doesn't always happen like that, hence it's funny that way, and came out pretty nice. And our nut bars, I just cut a few of them from the big pan, as you can see. They're real nice and gooey and ready to eat. For today's recipes, go to crazygoodfoodnetwork.com. Thanks for watching the dish. See you soon.